What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today we're going to talk about Super Slash Man, the Christopher Reeve story. There's a slash in there. I don't know how you guys see this visually. I don't know if you would read that aloud, but all my screen readers always make sure to read the slash. So it's maybe for you it's just Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, and you just skip the slash. But anyway, it's a new documentary, and it's being given a FYC campaign from WBD. So who knows? Maybe the Oscars will go for it. It's the kind of thing where I could see maybe it making the shortlist. They really don't like documentaries based on celebrity docs. However, this is not, last year, a lot of people thought Still would get there, and it didn't. This is a little bit more like the year that they got badgered for not putting the Mr. Rogers documentary in there, Won't You Be My Neighbor? You know, I mean, it's a little bit more like one of those things because it's a retrospective looking at somebody who's no longer with us. So it just makes them look like more like assholes when they aren't able to open up their hearts and minds to a film about somebody who died in 2004. So it's been a while, and this is them sort of looking back on him. And I thought it was pretty comprehensive, and for them to take, it's been 20 years since his death, and sort of like you know, what's time been like that's passed for, because his kids are now grown and they're adults and they're able to comment on this time period and what it was like for them. And there's some archival footage of Christopher Reeve filming for something. He seems like he knows he's filming for a documentary, by the way. I don't think he knows he's filming for a documentary that'll be released in 2024, so I don't know what he was filming for. But I don't know, maybe he was like, one day you'll make a documentary about me, and I want you to have this footage. One day, make the documentary. Promise me. So yeah, it's good. It tackles sort of the story in a way where it is sort of about how he was Superman. He was this, he was a father, he was a husband. This thing happened. He tried to fight it and battle it, and the different ways in which he tried to fight and battle, and how he ultimately lost the battle. It's not really a Christopher Reeve bio, in so much that you start off with, Christopher Reeve was born in 1967 to the parents of, you know, it doesn't start with like that. As a child, he was very precocious, and it's not one of those where it goes through his whole life. Like, I love anything that brings up the fact that Robin Williams was a delightful human being, because he's like he is my, I don't know, he's my favorite actor of all time. I think probably that's a safe bet. And he was also like, there's been nothing but love for him from like across the board. I've never heard anybody be like, Robin Williams was a dick. You know, like nobody's ever done that. Everybody's like, oh my God, he made us laugh. Like all the tributes and everything. And still years later, they still come in. So they talk about how, because he and Christopher Reeve were roommates at Juilliard for the short period in which Robin was there. And there's a mention of when Robin came and saw Christopher in the hospital after his accident. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, this is a cool scene. But also I was thinking to myself, you know what's funny is that narratively, we should have known this by now. Like they're explaining it now, but it's like, if you were going by like a strict, really sort of a biography, you know, you would have already mentioned that Christopher Reeve went to Juilliard long before we got to the accident stage. And you would have needed to mention then that Robin was, but that's the first time that they mentioned Robin, the first time that they mentioned they were roommates. So if you're trying to follow the linear life of Christopher Reeve, that would have already happened. However, they're not trying to do that. What they're trying to do is focus on, you know, Superman is also a man. He's just an actor. And, you know, he tried to bounce back from this thing, and he tried to be an inspiration to all, and ultimately lost that battle. And I think that's kind of what this focuses on, more than the, you knowing the intimate detail of his career. They don't really go into his other films that much. They don't really talk about, like, well, it was great for him to film Somewhere in Time, which has turned into a fan favorite over the years. And Christopher always said that he really liked, they don't do that. I'd say primarily they talk about Superman, and that's it, They just, it's primarily exactly what it says it is. And a lot of the stuff that shapes him are the experiences that his family had, and they're trying to tell you, basically they're trying to tell an audience that may not know who Christopher Reeve was, who he is, who this man was, because it's possible that just because of the nature of Superman the movie, that there are people, even Gen Alpha, people who are interested in Superman who are watching it, and out of context, and they have no idea who Christopher Reeve is, unlikely to watch any of the rest of his films, unless they're going to get into film. But there are people who still might just watch Superman, or they saw him in The Flash, and we're like, who's that guy, So they're sort of answering that question, but they're answering that question without feeling the need to, give you that wide net across his entire career and be like, when he was filming Speechless with Gina Davis and Michael Keaton, does anybody remember Speechless? I mean, like, if you were doing that kind of a documentary, you would absolutely touch on that, but at the same time, no. And so I actually think the fact that they chose to focus on it a certain way is what makes it different than sort of the other content creation that we consistently see day in and day out, where it's like, well, this is a documentary about so-and-so. This is a biopic about so-and-so. I mean, like, I feel like a lot of those things, you're always looking for, like, how are you making it different? What is it that you're saying? And the fact that they're willing to leave so much of Reeves' career just out of this, in large part, and not really focus on it, and not make it about his career and all of the movies he did and all the actors he worked with and the directors, and bring all the directors in and be like, working with Christopher Reeve was such a treasure of the time, and he was such an astounding personality and man, and I mean, none of that happens. It's the focus on this one thing, and I think that's what I liked about Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story. Which is funny because I didn't have enough time to really be a massive Christopher Reeve fan. In my own revealing my hand, I was not introduced to him initially through Superman. I did not watch those movies as a kid. Interestingly enough, I was never really into Superman as a kid. I was really into, like, X-Men and Ninja Turtles. So nobody was ever like, why don't we try this Superman the movie with you? I think Speechless was actually the first movie I saw him in 1994. And when I was looking at his filmography, it's tough to say for sure, but I was actually looking at that. I was like, what is the first thing I saw him in? I was like, was it Speechless? Such a random film for it to be the first time that I was like, oh, Christopher Reeve, yeah. It's like, I wonder if I remember, I want to ask, like, 11-year-old me and be like, did you know? Like, did you know who he was at the time? Did we know he was Superman? Anyway, so yeah, but yet I remember everything. I remember, the accident happened right after that in 95. I remember him going around and appearing in things, and they have, him showing up at an awards show, and it's sort of like this secret moment where he gets this big sort of standing ovation. He did a remake of Rear Window. So like, I remember that. So I remember some of the things in and around his, you know, the final, you know, I guess 9 years. I guess he lasted 9 years after his accident. So I remember those years. I remember what that was like for him. So, yes, I like the documentary. There are some heavy documentaries this year. I mentioned, I think in just one of my random Talking Oscars videos, I was like, this is a really strong year for docs. And I don't know if a documentary like this can get in. I don't know in a year where it feels like the world is on fire, and there are a lot of documentaries about the world being on fire. Will the documentary branch recognize something they typically don't recognize anyway? I think last year still did get into the shortlist, but it just didn't get the nomination. So it's possible that this could get one of the 15 shortlist spot and then just not make. The fact that it's got WB pushing it gives it a much better chance that it has the kind of campaign push to make sure this gets in front of everybody. But also, it kind of, luckily it didn't do like tons of box office, because they also hate populist documentaries. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I liked it. I'm going to give Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story, an A-. It's been a great year for documentaries. I've given so many documentaries an A or an A- this year because I think they're doing some really great work out there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.